My son came through the door and didn't say a word. No, "Hi, Mom." No, "Guess what we did in science today?" Just silence. He took off his backpack, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at his hands. And when I knelt beside him and asked what was wrong, he leaned in, eyes wide, voice barely a whisper, and said, "It happened at recess." Before we continue, please write in the comments which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. My son's name is Caleb. He's 8, kind, curious, a little shy, but always smiling. That's what made it feel so wrong. It was a Thursday afternoon, the kind of quiet spring day where the sun sits high and the breeze smells like fresh grass and pavement. I had just come back from the grocery store, started unloading bags when I heard the front door open. "Caleb?" I called out. No answer. He walked in slowly, like his legs didn't want to carry him. Dropped his backpack in the hallway, didn't take off his shoes, didn't ask for a snack, just sat. I wiped my hands and walked over. "Hey, kiddo, you okay?" He nodded, but his eyes told a different story, red around the edges like he'd been trying not to cry. I knelt beside him. "What happened?" That's when he leaned in. His voice trembled. It happened at recess. The way he said it made something in me tighten. "What did?" I asked softly. He looked away. "I can't tell. We're not supposed to." His fingers clutched the edge of his shirt. I sat down across from him, heart pounding. "Who said that?" "Mr. Hall," he said, barely audible, "and the other kids. They said if we told, bad things could happen." Now my stomach dropped. Mr. Hall was one of the new aides on the playground, hired just this year. I didn't know much about him, just that he wore dark sunglasses even on cloudy days and never said much during pickup. "Caleb," I said carefully, "you can always tell me. You know that, right?" He nodded, lips pressed tight. I decided not to push, not yet. I just hugged him, held him, while his little heart raced against mine. Later that night, after dinner, I brought it up again, calm, gentle. "Was it something scary at recess?" He hesitated, then finally nodded. "Was it something someone did?" A longer pause, then another nod, and then, he whispered, "I think he hurt someone." That was it. 5 words, but it was enough. I didn't sleep that night. I watched Caleb sleep instead. His face looked peaceful, but every now and then his body would twitch like he was flinching from something. I knew I had to find out more, but without scaring him, without making him shut down. The next morning I asked if he wanted to stay home. He looked surprised, then scared. "No," he said quickly. "If I don't go, they'll know I told." That hit me like a slap. "They who?" But he just shook his head and walked away. Something had happened. Something big, and not just to him. It wasn't just my child anymore. Something was wrong at that school, and someone was making sure the kids stayed quiet. I dropped Caleb off the next morning, but my hands were shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. He waved goodbye like everything was normal, but I could see it in his eyes. That forced smile. The way his backpack hung too low, like it was suddenly too heavy. He was scared. I parked down the street after he went inside and just sat there, watching the school entrance, watching Mr. Hall. There he was, standing near the gate like always, sunglasses, clipboard, still, expressionless, too still. He never greeted the kids, never smiled, just stood and watched like a guard at a prison fence. I pulled out my phone and started Googling. Mr. Hall Elementary School aide, substitute playground monitor background check, Mr. Hall school complaint, nothing. I checked the district site. No staff photo, no bio. Just his name under a list of part-time staff. Something wasn't right. That afternoon, when I picked Caleb up, I parked and waited again. Farther this time, watching, observing. It wasn't until the last bell rang that I noticed it. Kids weren't running out like usual. No laughter, no shouts of, "See you tomorrow." Just a slow, quiet stream of children, heads down, silent, like they'd all been told to be on their best behavior, or else. And that's when I saw it. A little girl tripped on the pavement. Mr. Hall walked over quickly, too quickly, but he didn't help her up. He grabbed her arm, not hard, but not gentle either, and whispered something in her ear. Her face went pale. She nodded fast. I leaned forward, heart hammering. When I got home, I asked Caleb again, casually, if he had any friends he liked at recess. He paused, then said, "Maya used to play tag with me, but she doesn't anymore." "Why not?" He looked down at his hands again. "She cried once, behind the slide, then she stopped playing." I felt my stomach drop. Later that night, I found Maya's mom on the school's parent group chat. I didn't know her well, but I messaged her. "Hey, this is Caleb's mom. I hope this isn't weird, but has Maya seemed off lately? Especially after school?" It took an hour for her to respond. "Yes, quiet, jumpy, doesn't want to talk. What's going on?" I asked if we could talk. She agreed. We met at the park the next afternoon while the kids were still at school, neutral ground. Maya's mom, Elena, looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. I told her what Caleb said, about Mr. Hall, about the whisper, about the silence. Elena didn't look surprised. "I've asked Maya so many times," she said. "She won't talk. Just says recess isn't fun anymore, that she'd rather stay inside." Then she pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was Maya's arm, bruised. "She said she fell," Elena whispered. But the story kept changing. And when I brought it up at school, the nurse said it was nothing. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just Caleb. It wasn't just Maya. It was more. I called another mom that night, then another, and every single one of them had noticed it too. Their kids were coming home quiet, sad, not playing like they used to. No one wanted to talk about recess. I created a group chat, just the moms who noticed. I asked them to gently talk to their kids, ask without pushing, wait for a slip, a whisper, and slowly the messages started rolling in. Eli said someone watches from the trees. Sophie said they're not allowed to play behind the equipment anymore because of a rule. Jack said there's a place behind the shed they're told to avoid, but no one knows why. That night, I didn't sleep again, because something was happening behind that schoolyard fence, and the kids were too scared to speak, except in whispers, except in dreams. It happened on a rainy Monday. Most of the kids stayed inside during recess, but one of the moms, Lena, whose son Max was in Caleb's class, texted me something that stopped my heart. Max told me he saw something. He wants to talk to you. Me? He said you're the one trying to fix it. I didn't hesitate. That evening, after dinner, I drove to Lena's house. Max was waiting in the living room, knees pulled to his chest, a threadbare blanket wrapped around him. He looked even younger than 8 in that moment, just a scared little boy trying to be brave. Lena sat beside him, gently stroking his hair. "Do you want to tell her, sweetheart?" she asked. He nodded slowly, then looked at me with wide, glassy eyes. "It was last week," he began. "Wednesday. I was hiding because I didn't want to play dodgeball." "Where were you hiding?" I asked gently. "Behind the red shed, by the fence." He lowered his voice. "That's when I saw Mr. Hall. He was talking to 2 boys, Sam and Toby." I recognized both names, friends of Caleb's. Max continued. "They were standing real still, not talking, just nodding." "What was he saying?" Max fidgeted. "I don't know. I couldn't hear much, but then he grabbed Toby's arm really hard. Toby made a noise like it hurt." Lena stiffened beside him. "He didn't tell me that part." Max nodded. Mr. Hall leaned down and said, "That's what happens when you don't listen." The room went silent. I looked at Lena. Her lips were pale, her hands trembling. "Did Toby say anything to you after that day?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing, but he's barely spoken at school since then. I thanked Max, told him he was very brave. When I got home, I sat in my car in the driveway, hands gripping the steering wheel. Something was wrong with Mr. Hall, deeply wrong. But the school wasn't doing anything. The principal had brushed off concerns when another mom tried to bring up her child's change in behavior. "They're just adjusting to spring," she had said. "Kids go through phases." This wasn't a phase. This was fear, and it had a name. That night, I stayed up late, scrolling through the district's hiring reports. I dug through the school's budget meetings, the substitute roster logs, anything that could tell me who exactly Mr. Hall was. At 2:13 a.m., I found something. A line item. Recess aide, temporary contract, 90 days, external hire, no background check required, emergency staffing exemption, no background check. My stomach dropped. They hired him without checking his history, because they were understaffed, because it was easier, and now someone's hurting children. I printed everything. The next morning, I kept Caleb home, told him he had a rest day. I didn't want him near that school until I had answers. I gathered the moms who'd been messaging me. We met in the back corner of a local cafe. No kids, just us. I showed them the documents, read Max's account aloud, and one by one, the mothers turned from confused to furious. We made a plan. Each of us would file a written statement, same day, same time, same demand. Investigate Mr. Hall. Interview the children. Suspend him pending review. And if the school didn't act, we'd take it to the district, the press, anywhere it needed to go. We weren't just angry moms. We were witnesses, and we had something the school didn't expect: each other. That afternoon, I walked into the principal's office with my file folder in hand, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel scared. I felt ready, because now there was no more whispering, only truth, and the truth was finally loud enough to be heard. The principal's office was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. The walls were decorated with bright posters, smiling cartoon kids, inspirational quotes about kindness. But none of it matched the energy in the room. Principal Dorsey sat behind her desk, hands folded neatly. She wore a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What can I help you with?" she asked. I set the folder down in front of her. "I'm here about Mr. Hall." Her eyes flicked to the file, then back to me. "We've received some concerns," she said, already defensive. "But children do exaggerate sometimes. You know how rumors spread." "This isn't a rumor," I said quietly. "It's happening to my son. To other kids, too. And I have statements. 6 of them." I slid the documents forward, one by one, each signed by a parent, each outlining behavioral changes, bruises, or whispered warnings. She didn't touch them. I waited. After a long pause, she sighed. "We'll look into it." "That's not enough," I said. "You need to remove him. Today. Until this is resolved." "I don't have the authority to—" "I've also contacted the school board, and I have a meeting with the district superintendent tomorrow morning." Her face hardened. But I saw it. The shift. She knew she was no longer in control. "I'm not trying to cause a scene," I added. "But these are children. They're scared. And they're being hurt." There was another pause. Then, finally, she spoke. "Mr. Hall will be placed on temporary leave effective immediately, pending further investigation." I nodded once and stood. As I walked out of her office, I passed Mr. Hall in the hallway. He was walking toward the staff lounge, sunglasses on, clipboard in hand. He didn't look at me, but something in his jaw clenched as I passed. Like he knew. He was cornered. That evening, word spread fast. Parents whispered in line at pickup. Teachers glanced nervously at each other. And the kids, something changed in them too. Caleb came home with his head a little higher. He didn't say much, just curled up beside me on the couch and whispered, "Is he gone?" I nodded. For now. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was Elena, Maya's mom. "You're not going to believe this. Maya just told me something she's been hiding." I called her immediately. Elena's voice was shaking. She said Mr. Hall took her behind the equipment last month, said she was talking too much, said she wasn't following directions. And then she paused. He grabbed her wrist so hard she had bruises for a week. Told her if she told anyone, the police would take her away for lying. My throat went dry. "I'm filing a report tonight," Elena said, "with the police. I should have done it earlier." "You're not alone," I told her. "None of us are anymore." By morning, 3 more parents had come forward. One of them, whose son was nonverbal, shared footage from a wrist camera he sometimes wore during transitions. The boy's therapist had recommended it for monitoring triggers. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. You could see Mr. Hall grabbing another student's arm and dragging him behind the shed. You could hear a low voice say, "Keep your mouth shut or I'll make your parents regret it." That was it. The district called an emergency meeting. Mr. Hall was terminated. Police launched an investigation. It turned out he wasn't even supposed to be near children. He'd been dismissed from a private school years ago for inappropriate behavior, but had used a slightly altered name to get rehired under the emergency staffing loophole. No background check. No one looked. No one cared to. Until the children whispered. Until the parents listened. And then, finally, the truth was heard. The school tried to move on quickly. By Monday, Mr. Hall was gone, his name scrubbed from the staff list, his records flagged by the district. Teachers were told to maintain normal routines. Parents got a vague letter about a staffing change and a promise of increased supervision. But we knew the truth, and so did the children. That week, the school invited a child psychologist to speak with the students. One-on-one sessions, quiet conversations during art or reading time. The kids didn't open up all at once, but the dam had already cracked. Caleb told me later that once the whispers started turning into full sentences, more kids felt brave enough to share. "I wasn't the only one who saw," he said, "but I thought I was." That's what silence does. It isolates. And that's what Mr. Hall had counted on. The investigation took weeks. Interviews, paper trails, testimonies from children, parents, and a few brave teachers who admitted they'd had concerns but were afraid to speak up without proof. The final report was damning. Mr. Hall had used fear like a weapon. He targeted quieter kids, ones who wouldn't speak out, who wouldn't be believed if they did. He created zones behind sheds and fences, blind spots between security cameras, where he would scold, grab, threaten. Sometimes for minor things like talking back, sometimes for nothing at all. One child had even tried to tell a teacher weeks earlier, but the teacher, overwhelmed and under pressure, brushed it off. That was the part that stung the most, how many adults missed the signs, and how the kids never stopped trying to tell us, in their own way. In early June, the district held a parent meeting in the school gymnasium. Rows of metal chairs, bottled water on a folding table, a microphone that buzzed every few seconds. I didn't expect much, but when the superintendent stood up, his voice was steady. "We failed these children," he said. "There's no other way to put it." He looked at us, the parents, the teachers, the aides, but thanks to a few of you who didn't stay quiet, who pushed when no one else would, we're rewriting how we handle recess, staffing, and student reporting, starting now. It wasn't everything, but it was something. After the meeting, Elena and I walked outside together. Our kids ran ahead of us across the playground, the same one where it all started, but now it looked different. There were new cameras, 2 new staff members, and most importantly, new rules that gave kids safe spaces to report concerns. "They're smiling again," she said, watching Maya spin in the sunlight. "It's coming back, little by little." I nodded. It'll take time. But it was true. The laughter had returned. Not loud yet, not wild, but real. One day, not long after, Caleb came home and tossed his backpack on the couch like he used to. He grabbed a snack and sat beside me. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "I helped someone today." I looked at him. "You did?" "There's a new girl in class," he said. "She was crying. I told her she could tell me if something bad ever happens." I didn't say anything. I just reached for his hand and squeezed it. Because that, right there, that's what the whisper turned into. It became a voice, then a message, then a shield. We still don't say Mr. Hall's name around Caleb. Not because we're hiding it, but because that name doesn't get power anymore. Instead, we talk about what to do when something feels wrong. We talk about how to speak up, who to go to, and why telling the truth is never wrong, no matter what anyone says. We remind him, and every child in our community, that if something happens at recess, they don't have to whisper. They can speak, they will be heard, and we will believe them. Every single time.